After winning Time magazine's 2025 Athlete of the Year award, A.A. Wilson chose to disparage Caitlin Clark rather than celebrate. Wilson's statement that the WNBA's history was temporarily erased was a clear jab at Clark's revolutionary influence on the league. Here's what makes this even more startling, though. Wilson is now perfectly content to be the only face on the Times cover, despite her complaints about recognition when Clark won last year and her demands that she be ignored since it's a racial issue. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. Finally, Caitlin Clark broke her silence. You won't believe her reaction. Please let us know in the comments if you believe AA should get the prize before we reveal the specifics of how Caitlin broke her silence. Wilson ought to have been enjoying herself immensely after being featured in Time magazine. With the assistance of the referees, of course, she had a historic 2025 season, earned her 4th MVP award, and guided the Las Vegas Aces to another championship run. However, Wilson decided to use her platform in a different way rather than commemorating her accomplishments. During the conversation, she claimed that WNBA history was momentarily erased. These weren't just any words spoken carelessly. Wilson was fully aware of her intentions and what she was saying. Let's examine A'ja Wilson's true meaning when she discussed the erasure of history. That remark was made at the ideal moment in relation to Caitlin Clark's great rookie season from the previous year. In addition to breaking attendance records and bringing in previously unheard-of television ratings, Clark gave the WNBA more media attention than the league had seen in years. Wilson claimed that for a moment, history was wiped. She wasn't discussing safeguarding a theoretical notion of league history. She was discussing how all Wilson and her contemporaries had created was overshadowed by Clark's influence. This is the most telling aspect. Wilson said nothing at all throughout Clark's historic 2024 campaign. Unanimously, Clark was named Rookie of the Year. 62 records were broken by her. The Indiana Fever made their first postseason trip since 2016, thanks to her leadership. She won the 2024 Time Magazine Athlete of the Year award and became the face of women's basketball on a global scale. Wilson had numerous chances to publicly applaud Clark or recognize her outstanding accomplishments. Every time, she opted for silence. Even when Clark encountered hostile groups on the route and received threats, Wilson remained silent. When Clark had to deal with blatant fouls and physical abuse from other players, she remained silent. Wilson, who claims to be a leader in the WNBA, showed no public support for the rookie, who was attracting millions of new fans to their sport. Her silence revealed a lot about how she really felt. Wilson now says she was safeguarding the league's heritage and recipe. But everything is revealed by her timing. She held off on making these remarks until she had the largest platform of her career. She had the ideal chance to downplay Clark's significance while seeming to uphold the WNBA's heritage during Time magazine's Athlete of the Year feature. It was planned and purposeful. Wilson claimed in the Time magazine interview that it didn't affect her because she would still do it. She declared that no one could shake her resume, that she would win this MVP award, and that she would receive a gold medal. Even when talking about Clark's influence on the league, she was totally preoccupied with her own achievements. Wilson's actual attitude is revealed in his sentence. Instead of viewing Clark's accomplishment as a step forward for women's basketball, she sees it as a danger to her own history and resume. Additionally, the Time magazine piece described Clark's rise as fostering a poisonous, racially divisive narrative that she was virtually solely in charge of saving a league whose foundation had been established by a predominantly black player base. Wilson's feature story used this framing, implying the message Wilson wished to spread about Clark's influence on the WNBA. Wilson's public persona has consistently emphasized solidarity and encouraging other female basketball players. She talks about encouraging one another and developing the game as a team. However, her remarks about Clark that are passive-aggressive show a different side. She is prepared to disparage the player who has drawn more attention to the WNBA than anyone in recent memory by using subtle jabs and coded language. This discrepancy between her public persona and her real actions points to the deliberate aim underlying her statements. What many fans thought during the 2024 season is confirmed by Wilson's own remarks in Time magazine. She is bitter about Clark's quick ascent and the attention it garnered. Wilson had every opportunity to show the youngster, who was improving their entire sport, kindness and hospitality. Rather, she opted for covert insults and jealousy under the pretense of preserving league history. Her genuine emotions were made public by her Time magazine moment. Now, the question is how the WNBA leadership will handle this clear conflict between their established star and their up-and-coming sensation. The hypocrisy in the WNBA reaches astounding new levels when you compare how the league handled A'ja Wilson's Time magazine award and how it treated Caitlin Clark throughout 2024. When Caitlin Clark broke records and dominated news in 2024, A'ja Wilson and a number of other players voiced their displeasure over individual accolades. They claimed that one athlete receiving so much attention was unfair and polarizing. Wilson even implied that Clark's prominence was problematic and used the topic of race to minimize Clark's accomplishments. The Washington Mystics owner, Sheila Johnson, stated on live television that the WNBA as a whole, not only Caitlin Clark, should be featured on the cover of Time magazine. Wilson contended that other players' contributions, especially those of black players who laid the groundwork for the WNBA, were disregarded by Clark's acknowledgement. She presented herself as someone safeguarding the league's legacy and ensuring that everyone who merited recognition received it. The story shifted from individual celebrity to group accomplishment. Wilson claimed that Clark's enormous media attention was unfair to other worthy athletes and detrimental to the sport. In the future, A'ja Wilson will be featured alone on the cover of Time magazine as their 2025 Athlete of the Year. Now, where are all those voices calling for widespread acknowledgement? Where are the grievances regarding an excessive amount of personal attention given to a single player? There is an overwhelming quiet. Wilson stands alone on that magazine cover representing herself and her achievements, with zero pushback from the same people who rejected Clark's solo recognition just months earlier. Wilson is now accepted by the league as the only representative of WNBA success, despite the league's purported emphasis on teamwork and shared credit. Nobody insisted that her teammates be acknowledged as well. The Las Vegas Aces were not invited to share the limelight. Wilson's overshadowing of other worthy players went unnoticed. When Wilson receives personal recognition, the same criticisms leveled at Caitlin Clark vanish. In this context, Wilson's earlier racial criticism of Clark's acknowledgement becomes much more poignant. She implied that the media favored Clark over black athletes by saying that Clark's race was a factor in her attention. Wilson's Time magazine piece, however, is not subject to the same scrutiny. Nobody asks whether she was more deserving of that honor than others. Players. Nobody questions why she is featured on the cover by herself, rather than as a representative of the larger WNBA community. Caitlin Clark was subjected to institutional bias from the start, and the WNBA's selective anger over individual accomplishments exposes the league's actual interests. Officials remained mostly silent as Clark broke attendance records and attracted previously unheard-of viewership to the league. Players tolerated the idea that Clark's success somehow reduced the contributions of other players, even as they chastised her for receiving too much attention. Examining the league's reaction to both circumstances makes the double standard abundantly evident. The WNBA had not seen this level of revenue, attendance, and media interest in years until Clark's remarkable debut season. Yet she faced persistent criticism for garnering individual accolades. Without a single person challenging the individual focus, A'ja Wilson receives one award and is honored on all WNBA platforms. This uneven approach to individual acknowledgement demonstrates that the WNBA's handling of Clark was never motivated by guaranteeing equal representation or safeguarding collective accomplishment. It was about preserving the current power structures and keeping a novice from upsetting the established hierarchy too soon. Wilson is elevated as their only representative by the same league that chastised Clark for overshadowing other players. Throughout Clark's debut season, the WNBA's institutional racism and A'ja Wilson's envy created a poisonous environment. The league never cared about consistency or justice, as evidenced by its disingenuous position on individual recognition. They sought to dominate the story and shield some actors, while discrediting others. This inconsistency was made public by Wilson's Time magazine moment. However, her animosity with Clark goes far beyond accolades and publicity. Wilson's hostile remarks against Clark point to a deeper issue than just player rivalry. She is witnessing the rapid decline of her position as the league's top star. The figures are accurate. Throughout her career, Wilson was never able to match the television ratings that Clark produced. Wilson's greatest postseason performances were dwarfed by the crowds that attended Clark's regular season games. Everywhere the Indiana Fever performed, Clark turned empty arenas into packed houses. Brands' perceptions on Clark as the future of women's basketball are revealed through her endorsement portfolio. Wilson's agreement is allegedly unable to match the unparalleled terms and worldwide marketing opportunities included in her Nike deal. Clark draws sponsors from sectors other than sports gear. Wilson has never had access to the audiences she appears in mainstream advertising campaigns. Her appeal to non-traditional basketball fans is widespread. Wilson's waning impact on the global scene is made clear by the USA team situation. Wilson is uncertain about her future with the national team, while Clark has secured a position on the roster. USA basketball authorities and Olympic organizers acknowledge Clark's capacity to raise awareness of women's basketball around the world. Wilson is a less desirable choice to represent American basketball abroad due to her divisive actions and contentious remarks. Global impact is changing. Wilson lacks the leadership traits that Clark's influence on her Indiana teammates reveals. Playing with Clark, Lexi Hull became a dependable three-point threat. With Clark, Aaliyah Boston developed her confidence and rhythm, which made it easier for her to make baskets. Thanks to Clark's playmaking skills, Kelsey Mitchell's career took off. Wilson concentrates mostly on her own numbers and accomplishments, but Clark raises everyone around her. Leadership is important. Wilson's career was built on personal recognition and individual awards. She uses individual honors, scoring titles, and MVP awards to gauge her achievement. Clark has a team-first approach to basketball, which improves everyone. While Wilson pursues scoring records, she shatters assist marks. While Wilson draws emphasis to her personal achievements, Clark celebrates the success of her teammates. Clark's strategy is initially defined by the team. Wilson is rapidly losing ground, as seen by his desperate attempts to maintain relevance through created controversies. Rather than concentrating on her own game, she creates drama around Clark's achievement. Instead of encouraging women's basketball, she utilizes her media appearances to subtly disparage the sport. Wilson uses what ought to be moments of celebration as a chance to minimize the accomplishments of other players. It is obvious that desperate measures are being used. Beyond basketball honors, Clark is well known for his impact on popular culture. Global entertainment brands are interested in her, and she was featured on Forbes 30 Under 30 lists. Wilson's accounts are unable to match the level of engagement generated by her social media presence. Wilson is limited to basketball-specific notoriety, whereas Clark embodies the kind of athlete who transcends sports boundaries. Cultural reach is important. The market makes it quite evident where the WNBA is headed. Clark's first season saw a 500% increase in WNBA retail sales. Wilson's equipment was vastly outsold by Clark jerseys. Comparing Clark's games to Wilson's, attendance numbers increased significantly. Clark is the league's most valuable asset based on retail sales, arena attendance, and television ratings. Value and the future are on exhibit. Throughout her career, Wilson achieved remarkable feats. She received numerous MVP honors and titles. She made a name for herself as one of the greatest WNBA players ever. However, Clark accomplished what Wilson took years to develop in a single season. Wilson's standing as the face of women's basketball was in jeopardy due to Clark's instant influence on every quantifiable facet of the game. When you look at Wilson's timeline of remarks regarding Clark, you can see how envious she is. During Clark's remarkable rookie accomplishments, she remained silent, but she spoke up after Clark was given significant accolades. Wilson held off on disparaging Clark's achievements in favor of her own legacy until she had a platform. She had the ideal opportunity to disparage the league's top player while seemingly defending WNBA history during her interview with Time magazine. Instead of celebrating her own accomplishment, Wilson's insecurity caused her to turn her greatest professional moment into a weapon against Clark. Fans had been wondering for days how Clark would react to Wilson's subtle insults, and she eventually spoke up. The world of basketball was holding its breath. Wilson's remarks regarding the erasure of WNBA history gave Clark every right to retaliate. She had the opportunity to point out the blatant contradiction. Wilson's quiet during her rookie season accomplishments may have been brought up by her. She had the opportunity to reveal the unfairness of Wilson's celebration of individual recognition while denouncing Clark for the same. Clark made a completely different decision. She congratulated Wilson for being named Time Magazine's 2025 Athlete of the Year in a straightforward yet impactful Instagram post. No drama, no passive-aggressive overtones, and no subtle jabs concealed in statements that appear to be encouraging. Wilson's accomplishment was the sole emphasis of Clark's post. Her genuine excitement for Wilson's achievement was evident in her Instagram tale. Wilson's amazing season and well-earned acclaim were highlighted by Clark. With no trace of animosity or bitterness, she praised Wilson's basketball accomplishments. In sharp contrast to Wilson's handling of Clark's achievement in 2024, the post exuded absolute dignity and sportsmanship. Wilson's remarks exposed every aspect of Clark's personality, and Clark's answer did the same. Clark exploited her position to support a player who had spent months disparaging her accomplishments, while Wilson used her largest platform to disparage and lessen Clark's influence. Wilson created controversy out of celebration. Clark transformed debate into joy. Even more striking is the timing of Clark's response. Shortly after Wilson's Time magazine interview attracted a lot of attention, she shared her congratulations. Clark had two options. Either she remained silent and let the scandal to unfold, or she let Wilson's words do the talking. Rather, Clark took the high road and openly backed the athlete who had shown her no support at all. When you compare these two players' methods, it becomes impossible to overlook the differences in their personalities. A.A. Wilson looked back and safeguarded her legacy during her Time magazine moment. Caitlin Clark is constantly forward-thinking and committed to expanding the game. Wilson saw Clark's success as a challenge to her own accomplishments. Clark believes that women's basketball benefits from everyone's success. Clark's Instagram post explains why sponsors and fans prefer her to other WNBA players. She embodies the kind of leadership the league will require in the future. Rather than destroying people, Clark uplifts them. Rather than fabricating drama, she crafts good storylines. Instead of being split, she celebrates women's basketball with her enormous platform. Wilson doesn't yet understand what Clark does, as seen by her remark. When every player is successful, the WNBA becomes stronger. Clark acknowledges that everyone in the league benefits from other players' accomplishments, therefore she praises them. Wilson sees success as a zero-sum game in which her own legacy is somehow diminished by Clark's achievements. The way both players handled this circumstance caught the attention of the basketball community. Clark appeared to be the responsible leader who overcomes small-minded jealousy. Wilson seemed nervous and defensive about her role in women's basketball. Clark's elegant reply demonstrated that she had the qualities that distinguish real champions on and off the court. Her response demonstrates why players who uplift others, rather than those who undermine their colleagues for their own benefit, are the ones who will shape the WNBA's future. Wilson's outburst at Time magazine was a complete failure. She intended to lessen Clark's influence, but instead she brought attention to her own fears. The stark contrast between these two players was made clear by Clark's kind reply. Wilson is a symbol of the old guard using drama and controversy to stay relevant. With her leadership, class, and team-first attitude, Clark personifies the future. Players that elevate the sport instead of undermining their colleagues will write the next chapter of the WNBA. Every day, Clark demonstrates why she is the most important person in women's basketball. Her strategy creates excitement, draws in new admirers, and uplifts everyone in her vicinity. Wilson's own decline is only accelerated by her jealousy. Do you believe Azza is deserving of the prize? Tell us in the comments section below. To ensure you never miss anything, like, subscribe, and enable all notifications. We'll see you on the next one when you click the video on the screen.